Patrick O'Donnell was born in the Donegal townland of Meenacladdy in 1835. Like so many of his contemporaries, he left Ireland behind to seek a better life. Moving to America, he spent time in the anthracite coal region of Pennsylvania, where he stayed with cousins who were members of the Molly Maguires, an Irish secret society named after an anti-landlord group of the same name. The O'Donnells comprised some of the top members involved in some of the Maguires' best-known feats. A plot was hatched by their enemies to kill the family. Some were either murdered, with others managing to escape in what became known as the Wiggins Patch Massacre. Now, Patrick reportedly retaliated against some of those involved in the attacks on his family, and it was decided it was best for him to leave America. A year earlier, on the 6th of May, 1882, the most senior Irish civil servant, the Permanent Under-Secretary Thomas Henry Burke, and the newly appointed Chief Secretary for Ireland, Lord Frederick Cavendish, who was also the nephew of Prime Minister William Ewart Gladstone, were killed as they walked through Phoenix Park in Dublin by a man who stabbed them both with hospital scalpels. The National Irish Invincibles claimed responsibility for the killings. The Invincibles were a splinter group of the Irish Republican Brotherhood, the IRB. This group of assassins were active in Dublin between late 1881 and 1883, with the intent to kill the authorities in Dublin Castle. The hunt for the perpetrators was led by the British State's Police Superintendent John Mallon, who arrested a number of suspects. Among them was James Carey, a town councilman in Dublin who struck a deal and turned Queen's evidence. Although he was reported a leader in the plan, he agreed to testify against his co-accused. Following Carey's testimony, 5 men were hanged at Kilmainham Jail for the killings between May and June 1883. Joe Brady, Daniel Curley, Thomas Caffrey, Michael Fagan and Tim Kelly. As part of the deal, Carey was given a new identity and safe passage to British-controlled South Africa. He travelled under the assumed name of James Power on the steamer Kilfin's Castle with his wife and 7 children. He later changed boats to the Melrose for the second part of the voyage. Little did James Carey know that Patrick O'Donnell was also a passenger travelling to South Africa. O'Donnell had come from the United States via Donegal and London and was travelling with a young Donegal woman who had married. Carey maintained his assumed identity for most of the voyage, but he later let his guard down, provoking a row in a Cape Town bar and displaying a revolver. A barman there became aware of Carey's true identity and informed O'Donnell. The 2 men had been drinking together in the second-class cabin aboard the Melrose before shots were fired, somewhere between Table Bay and Algoa Bay. O'Donnell shot Carey in the neck and twice more in the back as he staggered away. In a scuffle, O'Donnell was apprehended and sent back to London to stand trial at the Old Bailey. The trial took place at the Old Bailey from the 30th of November to the 1st of December 1883. The proceedings were presided over by Judge George Denham. The prosecution was led by Sir Henry James, the Attorney General. O'Donnell was represented by Sir Charles Russell MP. Irish Americans, following the case, sent a noted American jurist, General Roger A. Pryor, to assist from the United States. Pryor, who served as a general for the Confederate Army during the American Civil War, could not legally represent O'Donnell as he was not a member of the bar in the UK, and he took only an advisory role. As there was no proof that O'Donnell had set upon his voyage with the intention to murder Carey, the case was made that the informer had been recognised by a fellow passenger, Robert Thomas Cubitt, who testified that he had guessed Power's real identity when he was shown a copy of the Dublin Weekly Freeman. This had a portrait of Carey in it, along with a description of his involvement with the Invincibles. Cubitt told the court that he had shown this portrait to O'Donnell, who then said, "I'll shoot him." A similar portrait was later found among O'Donnell's possessions. Carey's wife appeared as a witness and claimed O'Donnell told her, "I was sent to do it." The defence put forward an argument of self-defence. Witnesses only recall seeing one pistol, that in O'Donnell's possession. Russell argued this was surely because of poor light and that Carey most certainly had a gun on his person at all times. This was for his own protection, especially since his identity had been discovered. The defence counsel spoke for 4 hours and put it to the jury that Carey had most assuredly produced his pistol. The same pistol had later been found in his son's possession. It took the jury just 2 hours deliberation to find O'Donnell guilty of wilful murder at 9 p.m. on the 1st of December 1883, after which the death sentence was duly passed. Several pleas for clemency were made on behalf of Patrick O'Donnell, from such notables as Victor Hugo and President Chester A. Arthur, who had met with a delegation of leading Irish Americans. The President of the United States officially petitioned on behalf of O'Donnell once it was determined he had acquired American citizenship. The British government protested this plea for clemency and it was denied. This is no surprise when you consider that the Prime Minister at the time was William Ewart Gladstone, who happened to be the uncle of Lord Frederick Cavendish, one of the victims of the Phoenix Park murders. Patrick O'Donnell was executed on the 17th of December 1883, hanged at Newgate Prison. A bizarre footnote to this sad event was the hangman, a certain Bartholomew Binns, who had just been installed as the chief English executioner on the death of William Marwood. Binns was noted as an incompetent and a drunkard. He was actually arrested after the execution, accused of fare dodging on his train trip to London. Though buried in London, a huge crowd assembled in Gweedore on the 22nd of January 1884 to celebrate a mass for the repose of the soul of Patrick O'Donnell. There followed a mock funeral and an empty coffin was placed in the O'Donnell family plot. The followers kneeling in prayer around the grave. Wreaths were placed on the coffin, which bore the inscription, "Sacred to the memory of Patrick O'Donnell, executed at London, 17th of December, 1883. There is a memorial to Patrick O'Donnell in Glasnevin Cemetery. This was erected by an Irish Republican Ladies' Committee from New York and the newspaper The Irish World. It has a wonderful inscription which reads, "In memory of Patrick O'Donnell, who heroically gave up his life for Ireland in London, England, 17th of December 1883. Not tears but prayers for the dead who died for Ireland." While there is a plaque commemorating O'Donnell's execution at his birthplace in Meenacladdy, the largest monument in Gweedore was erected in 1954 in Derrybeg by a Fianna Fáil committee. The committee consisted of 21 local Fianna Fáil common members who held fundraising events to finance the building of the cross. The cross was officially unveiled by Cormac Breslin, TD. The monument stands between the now demolished former hall and Pete's Bar pub. The inscription on the cross reads as follows: "In memory of Patrick O'Donnell, from the parish of Gweedore, who was put to death in Newgate Prison in London on the 17th of December 1883 because of his high loyalty to Ireland." I hope you have enjoyed my own personal tribute to Patrick O'Donnell, an Irish patriot. And if so, why don't you read my blog on my website, wildatlanticgweedore.com. Thank you.